Here's what's interesting in Memorial Hermann. If those 128 had not been hired, that had 4 to 10 red flags, you know how much money they would have saved in that 3-year period? 128 doesn't sound like much compared to over 5,700. They would have saved over $11 million. And that is not money amortized over 20 years. That's money that pitches immediately to the bottom line of the organization. And that doesn't even cover the money and time and energy that's saved if you bring in a good person, push up a good person to begin with, and your time is not consumed and your energy devoured by people who do not have good judgment. Look at this particular scale. This is a Blue Cross Blue Shield of Tennessee scale that talks about retention and turnover that relates to claims and customer service over a 2-year period. This is a Blue Cross Blue Shield scale that relates to nurses hired within Blue Cross Blue Shield of Tennessee. Most of these jobs are $50,000 a year higher-end jobs plus benefits. And so when they were turning over 28% a year, then you can see the cost that was involved with that. This data here is a 1-year set of data. And we use the tool to help in hiring, we use the tool in development of the team, and we use the tools most specifically in picking out the person who was the senior manager of this group. Previous to the time that Blue Cross Blue Shield had used the Hartman, they had had 3 senior managers of this group of probably 350 employees. They had had several different managers over an 18-month period. Since this process was done in the late 90s, the manager that was put in place at that time has remained in place. And you know what continuity and consistency of strong management can do to a team. And so I believe that these numbers reveal the potential that's there whenever you use all of the applications of the Hartman. And it also underscores that we're not interested in this just being simply seen as a hiring tool. This is a Midwestern hospital with a small component, the kind of purple-looking group, and a large downtown hospital, the kind of bigger bar there. In the first year, in terms of critical position hiring, you can see they were in trouble, so they let HR work on it. You can see what happened the second year. Got worse. You see where the arrow is, that's where the Hartman profile processes were introduced, and you see the improved outcomes. This is customer service stuff that we're all interested in. Here you've got 2 groups that were just alike. Both of these were the same kind of nursing clinical area. They were simply down different hallways from a central hub. They both had Press-Ganey scores when we began to work with them of 72, which is at least mediocre, maybe more than mediocre. That allows for a perfect study, so we left that group alone. And after a fairly short period of time, whenever Press-Ganey came back and looked at that first group again, hadn't changed hardly at all. The second group, where we had used the applications of the Hartman, went from 72 to 92. So impressive that Press-Ganey had this hospital CEO come to their annual meeting. And among a handful of things that he thought had made a difference in those scores improving so dramatically, he singled out the impact of the Hartman Value Profile. I think that Bob Worthington is the smartest man in Chattanooga, Tennessee. He was raised on American native tribal lands in Utah and in Wyoming. And he was raised in American native orphanages in those states. I don't know the full story, frankly, of why that was the case, but it was the case. And in those American Indian orphanages at the turn of the century, when Bob Worthington would have been a kid, the American Indians were smart enough to understand that kids need to be exposed to old people. And that in old people, that there sometimes is a repository of wisdom that cannot be gained in any other way. And so Bob Worthington and the people in these orphanages were exposed to gurus or shaman or wise men or people of that particular ilk. If you go into his office in Chattanooga today, it looks like a cave of a shaman. And I have problems really getting around to business because I've got to ask Bob, what's this? What's this? Where'd you get that? What's that for? And on and on. It's a remarkable experience just to be around this man and the kind of wisdom that he has. He took the profile just like you all did. And I was a little intrigued, if not a little bit intimidated, about what Bob Worthington would think about it, because he was the key to its being used in the ways that it is in Blue Cross Blue Shield. And so I went to Bob's office after about a week to give him a kind of a face-to-face rundown. And when we walked in, it was clear that this wasn't going to be a small talk day. And I sat down at Bob Worthington's desk, and he took his interpretation and he pushed it with the heel of his hand across the desk toward me. And he said, "Steve, do you realize what you have here?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I think so." And he said, No. Do you realize what you've really got here?" I said, "Well, I know the successes that we've had at Blue Cross Blue Shield in a couple of years of initial hiring activities and how everybody's happy about it." And he said, No. Do you really know what you've got here?" And so I said, "Bob, you tell me." And Bob Worthington said what you see up on the board. He said that most human resource tools being used today are the same tools used a generation ago. And for those of you that have been around a generation, you know that. We need a tool, Worthington said, that is as modern and as capable as the latest processes. And Bob Worthington said the Hartman Value Profile is the next generation human resources tool. And as one CEO told me not long ago, "I don't know if what you're saying is true. You seem to be able to back it up. These places where it's being used aren't fools." But then this CEO said to me, "If it's just a little bit of truth, we needed it yesterday." And so with all of the things that you're doing to push this paradigm shift to the next level, maybe you need the next generation human resource tool and the processes that Jason's described that surround the way that we'll apply it here, things work well. Maybe you deserve the next generation human resource tool. There are wonderful scores in this room. They're the kind of scores in this room that end up producing the highest level kinds of outcomes. In some respects, I'd love to see what this place will look like 2 years from now if you live up to the scores on that Hartman. They're probably being handicapped a little bit by your self-side scores. It'd be wonderful for you, not just the organization, if we could help do something about that. But if you can live up to what in general is on the profiles of the people in this room, then there's no reason, in my opinion, why you can't achieve most every goal that you're trying to come to and trying to achieve. I would tell you today that we have just scratched surfaces. But if you can just go out of here this afternoon with your curiosity and your interest piqued a little bit, that's the most Jason and I could hope for. Because if you're beginning to wonder if you don't need to look at this a little more closely, or if some of you are beginning to think this thing's going home with me and going up on the refrigerator for the world to see, then I think that maybe you're beginning to sense that we got a different kind of deal here that just might help you make some kinds of paradigm shifts in the work that you're doing and your healthcare system. In Alabama, there is a pig farmer. And the pig farmer goes down to where the little baby pigs are being raised one morning, and he finds something he's never seen before in his life, a pig with one eye. He calls Tuscaloosa to the university and tells the people in their agricultural department, "I've got a pig with one eye." And they say, "Bring it up here and let us see it." He puts it in a little box and goes up to Tuscaloosa. he's a fan of the University of Alabama Crimson Tide football team. He gets there a little early, and so he decides to go over and watch the team practice for a while. And he sits down in some little stands that they have. One of the assistant coaches sees him with his little box. He believes that he's a spy from the University of Tennessee, come to check on Alabama's latest plays and formations. And he runs over there and says, "What do you have in the box?" And the guy says, "A pig with one eye." He said, "No, you don't." "Yes, I do. Let me see." And the guy opens the box, and there's the pig with one eye. The coach has never seen anything like that. He blows his whistle. He stops practice. He calls out to the players on the University of Alabama football team, "Guys, run over here and look at this pig with one eye." At which point, the players at the University of Alabama run over and begin to look at the pig. You can change the names of the teams as it sits. But you see what Jason and I have been trying to say to you? We've been going through life to some extent looking at the people that are supposed to be the right people in the right seat on the bus with one eye. And our perspective is therefore limited. And all that this little tool does is to give us an opportunity to look at people with another eye. And it's not much more complicated than that. And it really works.
Can we get the ushers to pass the baskets right now? I feel like I've just been to church.